In a perfect world, your book of business is full, you only do tasks you absolutely love to do, and your clients adore you and pay on time. Also, your husband comes home early every day and makes dinner, and your children always clean up after themselves. Unfortunately, Mama, we are not living in a perfect world, and while life and business can be very, very good, I want you to be prepared for when your clients are the worst. By the end of this video, you'll know how to navigate a problem client without losing your cool. I'm Lauren Golden here with a new episode of Free Mama TV showing moms like you how to start and run a successful freelancing business from home. Subscribe to my channel and hit the bell to be notified when I post a new episode of Free Mama TV right here each and every Tuesday. You are a hardworking mama and you deserve to be compensated and compensated fairly for the work you do. Unfortunately, there are some not so awesome people out there who take advantage of freelancers, or they're just a pain in the tush. Well, the best case scenario, and the more likely one too, is that you never face these issues. The Boy Scouts motto will serve us all well here. Be prepared. If you already know how you'll handle a problem client, then you won't be thrown off your A game if you happen to encounter one. Here's a pro tip. Trust your gut. If a prospective client ever asks you for confidential information, requests you to handle money or open a bank account, or hires you without ever even speaking to you via phone or video, don't engage with them. Also, make sure you protect yourself up front to minimize the risk of running into issues, especially financial ones. You can check out the latest episode of Free Mama TV for the must-haves of any new client relationship. Mama, I am so excited for this episode of Free Mama TV because I get to test my acting skills. Just teasing. We are going to play out a few scenarios together today, and in each one, we are going to follow the same 3 pieces of advice. Are you ready? I call them the 3 E's. Empathy, escalate, and evaluate. Now, let's dive a little deeper before we dive into the scenarios. By empathy, I mean feel bad for your client. Assume the best first. Don't assume they're a jerk. Assume that they're a busy human being and a good human being. You decided to work with them after all. Number 2 is escalate, as in know your steps in advance so that you can take action progressively, quickly, and intentionally, and also know how far you're willing to take it. And 3rd is evaluate. There's always room for self-improvement, and self-reflection is a great way to become better at everything that we do. So you're gonna ask yourself, how can you improve your business? Okay, Mama, let's dive into scenario number 1. Client hires you, you do the work, you send the invoice, and then crickets. Following the 3 E's, we're going to start with empathy. And what I mean here is assume the best first. Don't assume this person is a deadbeat and ran off with your best ideas and is laughing all the way to the bank. Rather, assume the email didn't get through, or they're super busy, or something came up in their life that's preventing them from paying you. Just making this simple shift in the way we think about it, it's going to keep you calm as you deal with this issue. I promise. Step number 2, escalate. Follow your pre-decided plan of attack. Now in this scenario, I would start with a simple email reminder. A few days later, I might call or email again with a bigger sense of urgency. Perhaps eventually you even have an attorney reach out if it was a large sum of money. An important part of escalating is knowing how far you're willing to go. If this was a one-time project for $100, maybe it's best to count your losses and move on. Lastly, evaluate. Why? Because whenever something goes wrong between 2 people, there is room for improvement on both sides. Yes, your non-paying client was a jerk face, but maybe you need to start collecting payments in advance or getting a 50% deposit. Perhaps include a disclaimer on all of your invoices that states that anything paid later than 7 days past the due date incurs a 10% late fee. Think creatively about how you can better secure your business to make sure that this doesn't happen to you again. I have a question for you. Have you ever had an issue with a client that you had a difficult time navigating? Tell me about it in the comments below, and I may even answer your question in an upcoming episode of Free Mama TV. Let's look at another scenario. In this scenario, client keeps canceling your weekly meetings, or worse, forgets to cancel and doesn't show up at all. Now, if we go back to our 3 E's, we're going to start with empathy again. It's unlikely that your client wants you to fail. it's much more likely that they're feeling overwhelmed, or perhaps they've never outsourced before and they're having a hard time understanding that you are also running a business of your own. When we move to step 2 and we escalate, it's important that you communicate and remind them that you want to help them achieve their goals. But in order for you to be successful, they need to value your time and equip you with the tools that you need in order to get your work done. And that requires meeting with you so that you can get the information that you need. It's not always easy to do, but it is important that you articulate or re-articulate, as the case may be, your boundaries and expectations of your client. Lastly, evaluate. Could you discuss billing them for meetings not canceled within 24 hours? Could you create a client intake form when you start working with a new client? Or even a weekly survey that they can complete instead of attending the meeting to maybe make things easier on them. Remember, a business relationship is between two people, and while it's easy to place the blame, there's always something that you can do to help alleviate the problem as well. Here's another scenario for you. Client is never satisfied with the work you complete. Or maybe they're just a control freak who needs to be in control all the time. Or they just don't get you what you need to complete the work at all. Basically, you're left feeling not good enough. When we start with empathy here, what I want you to remember in this scenario is that this is not personal. It's not about you at all. So you need to take your emotions out of it, even though it would be a super uncomfortable place to be with a client. It's important that you approach them with empathy, that they're clearly having a hard time letting go, or maybe they're confused about their own vision for their business. And that is not a reflection on you or your skills or lack of communication. Next, we escalate. Clearly in this scenario, we need to have some communication. So asking them to meet or be more specific about the things that they're not satisfied with, or letting them know that, much like in the last scenario, you might need to do a client intake form or a weekly informational survey that they could fill out to give you the feedback so that you can be successful. But reminding them that you're on their team. You want to do a good job. You want to make them happy, but you also need the information because you can't guess and just get it right. Lastly, evaluate. Is there anything you could do to improve your own skills? Is there some professional development you could take? Is there a course you could take or a YouTube video you could watch about the things you're being asked to do that perhaps aren't meeting the expectations of your client? Also, it's really important that we learn how to take constructive feedback. Now, if your client is consistently just insulting you, that's a lack of respect. But if they're providing you constructive feedback that's going to allow you to grow and not only make them happier, but also produce better results for your other clients, you need to be open to hearing this as well. Here's one last scenario for you. Client asks you to do something completely unethical or just something that you don't agree with morally. Maybe it's removing a watermark or plagiarizing copy or images that they found online, or maybe it's simply a use of profanity in their own marketing materials that you're not agreeing with. Again, we're going to approach this situation with empathy first. I would operate under the assumption that they are unaware of what they're doing. They're either unaware that they're offending you or in some cases, flat out doing something illegal. So rather than assume that your client is a terrible person with a low moral compass, maybe you can educate them. Maybe you can start by letting them know why you're uncomfortable with the scenario that you've gotten yourself into. Next up, we're going to escalate it. So after you've explained the issue, if your client is still not accommodating or respecting what you've laid out that you will and will not do on their behalf, you need to draw a hard line in the sand on this one. This one is bumping up against some dangerous territory. And so you need to be crystal clear on your own boundaries and what you are and are not willing to do on behalf of a client. Remember earlier when I told you to trust your gut? You should have a clear exit strategy on this one, because anybody who's going to ask you to do something illegal is not worth working with. Even in an extreme situation like this, we need to take the time to evaluate. Were there any red flags earlier on in the relationship with the client that would have let you know that perhaps you shouldn't have started working with them in the first place? Now, unfortunately, we can't always see these different scenarios coming when they're just a prospective client. If we could, most of us would probably avoid them, right? But it's important to have that self-reflection and go back and ask yourself, Would you go back and do anything differently so that you can learn from it for next time? Now you know how to protect yourself from a problem client, and you are a business owner, mama, and dealing with big kid scenarios, it's just part of the gig now. Just remember that you are in control, and if you stick to the 3 E's, you will handle the situation gracefully and you will come out stronger on the other side. I promise you that. Now, if you are just getting started in your freelancing business, I would like to invite you to my free training. It's about 90 minutes and it is going to show you the free mama way to make money from home. You can find the link to that training down below. Also, if you want to join a community of mamas just like you, I have a Facebook group where thousands of mamas come together for support and action-taking tips and motivation. As always, if you liked this video, please let me know by liking it below, subscribe and share it with your fellow mamas, and comment below with hashtag I'm a free mama if this video helped you handle your next problem client. Okay, I think that's how I would feel if I didn't get paid. Okay, launch laughing. Your non-playing client, a business, it is how I feel when I don't get paid. And that you could you need to cut in your own, oh my God, now my stomach's growling so bad. Tell me what. Okay, I think we're good. Whew.